Welcome everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. Jane spent my money on her affair, then stood in our Baltimore kitchen and called me clueless like it was a punchline. She didn't whisper it, either. She said it loud, slow, and proud, so her sister on FaceTime could laugh too. And when I tried to speak, she turned her phone toward me like I was a joke she wanted to show the world. "Look at him," she said, smiling, still trying to understand. I felt my face burn, my stomach drop, and my hands shake. She enjoyed it. That's what hurts the most. She enjoyed humiliating me. Here's how it happened. I'm Andrew, born and raised in Baltimore, still got the same childhood barber and the same stubborn belief that love means staying. I worked the port, did overtime until my knees begged me to stop, and thought being a husband meant carrying the heavy stuff so Jane could breathe. I thought we were building a life. What we were really building was a stage where I played provider and she played queen, and nobody warned me that crowns can be used like weapons. When I met Jane, she was the kind of beautiful that made you forget your own name for a second. It wasn't just looks, it was how she talked, like she had music in her voice. We met at a friend's cookout near Druid Hill Park. She roasted me for flipping burgers too slow, then stole one off my spatula and called it quality control. I laughed so hard I almost dropped the tray. Later she leaned close and said, "You might be funny. I'll allow it." That "I'll allow it" had me floating. Our early dates were cheap and perfect. We'd split a crab cake and argue about whose grandma made greens better. Jane would pretend to be offended, then feed me a fry like she was bribing me into peace. One night we walked the inner harbor and she tucked her hand into my coat pocket like it belonged there. I remember thinking, this is it. This is the kind of love people write songs about. Quiet, warm, regular. If someone told me back then that Jane would one day laugh while breaking me, I would have called them bitter. I proposed in a way I thought was romantic. Candles, flowers, a tiny ring box, and me trying to say something deep without sounding like a greeting card. Jane cried, jumped into my arms, and said yes before I finished. Her mother hugged me like I'd won a prize. Her sister posted our engagement photo and captioned it, "She finally got a good one." I took that as a compliment. Looking back, it was a warning. I was a good one, like a useful tool. Nice to have, easy to use. Before we got married, my uncle pulled me aside at a family gathering in West Baltimore. He said, "Nephew, love is real, but paperwork is also real." He'd been through a messy divorce and didn't romanticize anything. He pushed me to get a prenup, not as a threat, but as protection. I hated the idea at first. It felt like I was planning for failure. But I also knew I'd been saving since I was a teenager, and my job was steady but hard. So I did it. When I brought it up to Jane, she stared at me like I'd slapped her with a receipt. Then she laughed and said, "You think you're some kind of millionaire." I tried to explain it wasn't about mistrust. It was about clarity. She rolled her eyes, but she signed. Later she teased me, calling me Mr. Spreadsheet. She'd kiss me and say, "You're so serious." I thought she meant it affectionately. Now I realize she meant, "You're so easy to manage." Marriage started sweet. Jane danced in the kitchen while I cooked, bumping her hips into mine so I'd spill seasoning. She'd steal my hoodie and walk around like it was royal robes. We'd watch cheesy movies and argue over plot holes, then make up with kisses that felt like home. I'd come home sore from work and she'd rub my shoulders and say, "My hardworking man." I held on to those moments like proof we were real. I didn't realize love can be performed convincingly by someone who sees you as a resource. The money stuff changed slowly. It always does. At first it was small. "Babe, can you cover brunch?" "Babe, my card is acting weird." Then it became patterns, luxury hair appointments, surprise shopping sprees, random helping my cousin transfers. When I asked questions, Jane would get cute and say, "Don't you want your wife to look good?" And I did. I loved her. I wanted her happy. So I learned to swallow my discomfort and call it generosity. Jane's family had a way of treating me like the help. Her mom would call and say, "Jane needs a new car," like I was a dealership. Her sister would joke, "Andrew got it," whenever a bill came. The worst part was how Jane would smile along with them, like my role was the funniest thing about me. I told myself it was harmless. I told myself families are loud. I told myself it would get better once everyone adjusted. In reality, they were adjusting perfectly to me paying. I tried to add romance to balance the stress. I planned a weekend in D.C., just us. We ate at a little spot in Georgetown, and Jane took pictures of her plate like the food was auditioning for a magazine. She laughed at my jokes again. She leaned her head on my shoulder in the Uber and hummed along to old-school R&B. For a second, I felt like we were back at the beginning. That's how she kept me hopeful, giving me just enough sweetness to ignore the bitterness. The first bank alert hit like a slap. A Miami hotel charge. Big. Not I needed a room for work big, but I'm pretending I'm wealthy on purpose big. I called Jane. She didn't answer. I texted. Nothing. When she finally replied, it was a single line. It's handled. I stared at the message, confused by the arrogance. Handled by who? Me, apparently. That night she came home late, smelling like a new perfume she didn't own last week. I started checking statements like it was a second job. My stomach lived in a knot. Charges popped up from places I didn't recognize. Clubs in D.C., boutiques, a rental car in Florida. Then there were payments that made no sense. A man's barbershop membership, a phone bill under a different name, a rent portal with a unit number I'd never seen. When I asked Jane, she yawned and said, "You're doing too much." Like my fear was annoying her. One day I came home early and found Jane on the couch, giggling at her phone like a teenager. I smiled automatically, trying to join the warmth. "What you laughing at?" I asked. She locked her screen fast. "Nothing," she said, too quick. I felt my chest tighten. She noticed, then got defensive. "Why you always interrogating me?" She turned it around so fast I almost apologized for hearing her laughter. That's the thing about manipulation. It makes you doubt your own senses. The humiliation didn't come all at once. It came in pieces. Jane would make little jokes in front of people. If I corrected her, she'd smirk and say, "See? He thinks he knows everything." If I stayed quiet, she'd call me sensitive. At a family dinner, her sister asked Jane what she wanted for her birthday. Jane looked at me and said, "He'll figure it out. Andrew is good for something." Everybody laughed. I laughed too, because I didn't want to be the man who can't take a joke. Then the night happened, the one that split my life in two. I confronted Jane in our kitchen with printed statements, trying to keep my voice steady. Her sister was on FaceTime again, eating chips and smiling like she'd been waiting for the show. Jane leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and acted bored. When I asked who the Miami hotel was for, she shrugged and said, "Not you." Then she looked me in the eye and said, "You're so clueless," like it was my nickname. I felt heat rush through my body. I asked her to stop. I begged. Once, just once, because humiliation makes you desperate. Jane smiled wider. She turned the phone toward me and said, "Look at him," trying to be serious. Her sister laughed so hard she snorted. Jane called the man, right there, put him on speaker. He answered like he'd been expecting it. Jane said, "Tell him what you said about him." And that man chuckled, relaxed, and cruel. He seemed like the type to apologize for his own heartbreak. The man said. Jane laughed like she'd heard the funniest joke in the world. I stood there, shaking, and realized I was outnumbered in my own home. I couldn't breathe right. I walked out to the porch and sat down like my legs forgot how to work. The city sounded normal. Cars, distant music, somebody's dog barking, while my whole world collapsed quietly. Jane didn't come check on me. She didn't care if I was broken. She wanted me to feel it. The next morning, Jane's mother showed up uninvited. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask what happened. She came to defend Jane like I was a threat. "Stop harassing my daughter," she said. A real man wouldn't be counting pennies. When I told her it wasn't pennies, it was thousands, she waved her hand like numbers were feelings. "If you can't keep a wife happy, that's on you," she said, then walked away like she'd delivered wisdom instead of cruelty. At work, I moved like a ghost. My coworkers asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was tired. I didn't want pity. I didn't want gossip. I wanted my life back, but inside I was drowning. Betrayal, shame, rage, love still clinging like a bad habit. I'd catch myself remembering Jane's early kisses and then feel sick because I didn't know which Jane was real. The romantic one, or the one who laughed while I cracked open. Jane stayed out more. She came home only to shower, change, and take something. One night she walked past me like I was furniture and said, "Don't start." I hadn't said a word. She was already prepared to paint me as the problem. When I tried to talk, she rolled her eyes. "You're embarrassing," she said. "You're acting like a victim." That word, victim, hit hard because I was, and she wanted me to feel ashamed for it. I started gathering receipts. Quietly. I didn't announce it. I didn't threaten. I just collected proof the way you collect yourself after a storm. I screenshot charges. I requested statements. I printed invoices. I found a rent portal link and the unit number. I matched the dates with Jane's girls' nights. The more I found, the less I slept. Sometimes I'd wake up at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling, wondering how love turns into this. Wondering if I missed the signs because I wanted the dream. In the middle of all that pain, something small and strange happened. I remembered how my grandma used to say, "Baby, don't announce your plans to people who benefit from your confusion." It made me laugh once, a bitter little laugh, because Jane really did benefit from me being clueless. So I stopped showing her my emotions. I stopped reacting. I became calm in a way she didn't understand. She tried to provoke me, insults, eye rolls, little comments. But I stayed quiet. Not weak quiet. Strategic quiet. I met my attorney downtown. I wore my work boots and my tired face. My hands shook when I handed over the folder. He flipped through it, calm like he'd seen this movie before. "You have documentation," he said, "and your prenup has a clause for this exact situation." Hearing that felt like inhaling air after being underwater. Not happiness, relief. He asked if I wanted to file that night. I looked at the calendar and realized something. Timing mattered. The clause triggered at midnight, the first of the month, after the joint account cycle closed and the automated payments cleared. It was like the prenup had a hidden door that only opened at a specific hour. So I told my attorney, "Tomorrow." I went home and sat on the couch like a man waiting for a train. Jane walked in around 11:30 p.m., smelling like expensive perfume and disrespect. She looked at me and smiled like she had more knives to throw. "You still here?" she said. "Ain't you embarrassed?" She grabbed her phone and FaceTimed her sister again, angling it so I could see the grin. "Look at him," she said. "He's just sitting there, clueless." Her sister laughed. Jane's laughter joined it, sharp and bright. I didn't flinch. I stayed at the clock behind her like it was the only thing holding me upright. She thought my silence was defeat. She didn't know I was counting seconds like prayers. 11:58.11:59.12:00 at 12:07. Her phone buzzed. Then buzzed again. She frowned, tapping her screen harder each time like pressure could fix reality. "Joint card declined," she read out loud, confused. Then, transfer reversed. Then, account restricted. Her face changed, just a little, into irritation. She tried to send money again. Declined. She looked at me like I had committed a crime. "What did you do?" she snapped, loud enough for her sister to hear. I slid one sheet of paper across the coffee table. Case number. Attorney contact. Prenup clause highlighted. Jane scanned it and scoffed like arrogance could erase ink. "That's not gonna hold," she said. No apology. No fee. No remorse. Just disrespect, even then. But the Lord doesn't respond to attitude. By morning, temporary orders were filed, the documentation was attached, and that little clause, the one she treated like a joke years ago, started doing exactly what it was written to do. Karma didn't come as something dramatic or public. It came as consequences. The joint money stopped. Her spending stalled. The affair stopped feeling fun when it became her problem to fund. Bills arrived. Debt got heavy. People who laughed with her stopped answering. Her sister disappeared when her own transactions showed up in filings. Jane's mother couldn't bully a bank statement. And Jane, still cruel, left the house saying, "You always had to control everything. This is why nobody really loves you." Then she shut the door hard. My success was quiet. I changed the locks. I separated accounts. I paid everything on time without feeling sick. I went to therapy outside the city and learned I wasn't clueless. I was loyal in a world that confuses loyalty with weakness. Eventually, I started dating again. Slow, careful, and I laughed for real the first time when a woman teased me for bringing a spreadsheet to plan a picnic. I didn't need revenge. I needed peace. Moral lesson: love should never cost your dignity. Protect your heart and your future, and let consequences speak louder than your pain. If you love stories that make you gasp, laugh, and whisper "no way" in the same minute, hit subscribe, because the next one is even worse.